Okay, today's title would be Expressions. Review number 2. Okay, let's review some rules for multiply and divide. And then add and subtract. Because we use these rules for integers along with what we do for expressions. So I'll give you a minute to write this out. But what we have here is a positive times a positive times a negative times a positive, and a negative times a negative. So these are the situations that you encounter. Okay, so, and you could think of a positive as being hot and the negatives as being cold. So if you have a hot times a hot, positive times a positive, the answer is positive. I'll kind of spell it out a little bit. How about a positive times a negative? Well, there's one negative, so the answer will be negative when multiplying. How about a negative times a positive? Well, there's one negative, so it's going to be a negative when multiplying. How about a negative times a negative? Well, two negatives cancel when multiplying, so the answer is positive. Okay, so hopefully this helps you a little bit remembering the rules when multiplying positives and negatives together. Notice that if they're the same sign, it stays the same. Negative times negative. I'm sorry, forget I even said that. Notice if there's one negative, it's negative. And if there's two negatives, it's positive. Now, if there's no negatives, of course, it's just positive. It stays positive. Okay, I'm just going to separate mine a little bit. Now, what happens if, for adding and subtracting, think of it this way. What happens if they are the same sign? And what happens then if they're different? And I'm going to abbreviate DIFF, different, same sign, and different sign. Well, if they're the same sign, what you want to do is add them. And if they're different signs, what you're going to do is subtract. And let's do an example of those, one of each. So this will be negative 3 minus 7. And can you see that negative 3 minus 7 is actually negative 3 and negative 7? Right? Because minus 7 is the same as negative 7, same result. And so all we would do is simply add these numbers together. 7 and 3 is 10. The answer is negative 10. You see that? I added them. I added the two numbers together. 7 and 3 is 10. 10 negatives. Okay, let's do one with a different sign. How about if I would have said 3 minus 7? That's the same thing as 3 and negative 7. Because minus 7 and negative 7 give you the same result. Think of minus 7 as being negative 7. Okay, do you notice how these are different? Different signs. This one's positive, this one's negative. If they're different signs, subtract them. 7 take away 3 is 4, but notice you have more negative. There's more negative. It's not negative because there's one negative. It's negative because there are more negatives than there are positives. Okay, so hopefully that kind of clarifies and make it a little easier for you. Many of you already know that, and we're doing it in your heads already, but that's kind of a little shortcut. In other words, these are the rules, but you can still think of hot and cold. If you have 2 cold, it's just gonna get colder. 3 cold and 7 cold, it just gets colder. If you have some hot and some cold, but there's more cold, it's still gonna be cold, but you have to subtract them. Okay, we'll do a total of 8 examples. So first one. So we'll want to rewrite it underneath it. This is the same thing as 1 and -8. Or -8 is just like -8. And here, remember, subtracting a negative is like adding. Double negative makes a big plus. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put 2 of those together. So if I do that, I have 1 and -8. These together, I'll put a line there. There's more negative. They're different, so subtract. 8 take away 1 is 7, and there's more negative. Oh, these are different, right? One's negative, one's positive, so subtract it. 7 take away 6 is 1, and there's more negative. And there's your answer. Number 2. Okay, so rewrite it so it makes sense. Let's see, we have -6. That's -4 is the same as -4, same result, plus 2. Notice how these are the same sign. This is negative and that's negative. Add them together if they're the same. 6 and 4 makes 10, and they're both negative. And then you have a plus 2. And let's see, that's negative and that's positive, so subtract them. They're different. 10 take away 2 is 8, and there's one more negative. So -8. Okay, same signs, add them. And if they're different signs, subtract them. Okay, well, I can do this one right here. This is this part right here. They're different signs, so subtract them. 4 take away 3 is 1, and there's more positive. So it's positive 1. 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, and then this, remember, is the same thing as -8. So now I have 1 and -8. They're different, so I subtract. 8 take away 1 is 7, and there's more negative. Okay, different signs, subtract. Different signs, subtract. Okay, 2 minus 3 plus 5. We write that. So that's the same thing as 2, plus -3, right? Minus 3 is the same thing as -3. So I'll do this part first, and that comes out to be 2 and negative 3. Those are different signs. 3 take away 2 is 1, right? These together. Well, that's 1, and there's more negative. So this is negative 1 plus 5. I'll bring this down. Notice that these are different, so you subtract it. 5 take away 1 is 4, and there's more positive, so the answer is positive 4. Okay, just because there's one negative sign doesn't mean it's negative. We're not multiplying. It's just seeing what we have more of. We have more positives. How many more? 4. I've reached the bottom, so I'm going to go back up here. We'll do some expressions now. Oops, I'm sorry. I apologize. So negative 5x plus 6 minus 9 plus 11x. So let's put together the like terms. So what do we have first? We have this negative 5x plus 11x. Do you see how they're different signs? This one's positive and this one's negative. So I subtract them. 11 take away 5. 11 take away 5. Was that 6? And let's see, there's more positive, right? So it's positive 6x. Okay, now the other one, now we have our constants, right? These two right here, I'll put together. So that's a positive 6 and a negative 9. They're different signs. This is positive, that's negative. So subtract them. 9 take away 6 is 3. And I have more negative. So it's minus 3 or negative 3. You could say plus negative 3 if you want to. It's the same. All right, number 6. All right, so we're going to use the distributive property. So outside times the inside. So negative 3 times negative 2, right? It's negative 2. 3 times 2, that's 6. 2 negatives cancel. Remember the rules? 2 negatives cancel, it's positive. Next I have negative 3 times 5. That's a positive 5. 3 times 5 is 15. And there's one negative. I'm multiplying with one negative, so it's negative. Minus and negative are the same result. And there's your answer. Okay, if you remember, your first step is not to subtract, but to go ahead and do distributive property. Now that's a visible 1 right there. The invisible 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. And you're using one negative, multiplying with one negative. That's a positive 3. 5 times 3 is 15. And you're multiplying with one negative. So it's negative. Now go ahead and drop down the 8. And now we put together our like terms. So what do we have? We have negative 5x. And then for our constants, we have an 8 and a negative 15. Okay, they are different signs. Since they're different, I subtract. 15 take away 8 is 7. And there's more negative than there is positive. All right, so when we're multiplying, one negative, negative, two negatives cancel. When we're combining like terms, same sign add, different sign subtract. Last problem. Wow, okay, this is kind of a big one, huh? So it looks like we're doing distributive property twice. Okay, so let's do that now. Look at all these different colors I have. Okay, so I'm going to use negative 2 times 8. 2 times 8 is 16. There's one negative. Okay, now I have 2 times negative 5. 2 times 5 is 10, and there's two negatives. Multiplying two negatives, they cancel. Next one, this is a positive 3, right? 3 times 4, that's 12. 12x. That's a positive 12x, so I'll just put a plus in front of it. Then I have 3 times negative 3. 3 times 3, that's 9. And there's one negative. I'll multiply with one negative, so it's negative. Okay, time to put some things together. So let's take a look at our constants. Now we're going to look at if they're the same, add. If they're different, subtract. So look at these two. That's negative and that's a positive. They're different, so I subtract. 16 take away 12 is 4. And let's see, I have more negative than I do positive. So that's a negative 4x because there's more negative. Then we have 10 and negative 9. 10 and negative 9. Let's see, they're different, so I subtract. 10 take away 9 is 1, and there's more positive than negative. It's more positive, so it's a positive 1. And that is it. So think of adding and subtracting, same sign add, different sign subtract. You're going to think hot and cold. And this one negative is negative, two negatives cancel.